listen, you can hear their hearts beating loud. Can't keep those California Indians down.
Hello, everyone. You're listening to American Indian Airwaves. From Marcus Lopez, I'm your host, Larry Smith. In the first segment of today's program, Saving Oak Flat, a culturally active and sacred site to many Native American nations throughout the Arizona region, the site is under threat with plans to construct one of the largest open copper ore pits in the world. We'll speak with two members of the Apache Stronghold on the spiritual convoy to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which is happening March 21st in Pasadena, California. And in the second segment of today's program, part two of our two-part interview with Kevin McKernan on the 50th anniversary of the occupation of Wounded Knee. You're listening to American Indian Airwaves.
You can hear when the moon shines bright, the lone blue arrow in the black of the night. You can hear the whisper in the valley. And you know when Kamakani blows to the Bahu drum, it's the warriors who are marching down the mountain, because history ain't no mystery to me.
In the first segment of today's program here on American Indian Airwaves, I have the honor and pleasure to speak with Leanne Big Horse and Vanessa Nosey of the Apache Stronghold on protecting Oak Flat, a culturally active and sacred site to many Native American nations throughout the Arizona region. The Apache Stronghold, with Indigenous allies and U.S. and international supporters, have been tirelessly working to stop a nearly 8-year-long process to exchange Oak Flat, a 2,200-acre site in Tonto National Forest, to Resolution Copper, a subsidiary of Rio Tinto and BHP, which plans to construct one of the largest copper and ore mining pits in the world. The mining project would not only and permanently destroy the active cultural and sacred site that would result in compounded and contributory forms of genocide towards many Native American nations, but once the project is completed, it would leave a 1,000-foot deep crater over 2 miles across and use enough water to supply a city of 140,000 annually for its estimated life. In 2015, when the United States Congress passed the annual National Defense Authorization Act, it included a rider titled the Southeastern Arizona Land Exchange and Conservation Act of 2014. It authorized the United States forests to exchange lands to Resolution Copper, and since 2015, the Apache Stronghold, along with allies, have been at the forefront trying to stop the land exchange, including legally challenging the U.S. government. We begin today's interview with Leanne Big Horse and Vanessa Nosey of the Apache Stronghold on the spiritual convoy to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which concludes on the court date of March 21st of 2023 in Pasadena, California, where the court could rule that the Oak Flat land exchange is illegal and prevent the proposed construction of the mine. And now the Apache Stronghold spiritual convoy to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals here on American Indian Airwaves.
Let me kind of just start you from the beginning of our journey. We began in Oak Flat. Everything that we do is about prayer. And this is a spiritual journey. It's a spiritual convoy. So we begin in prayer, and we're praying, all the different territories that we're coming through, with all the different people that we're greeted by and hosted by. So we started out in Oak Flat on Saturday, and then we journeyed to the Tohono and they're in Tucson, in the Tucson area. That's their homelands there. And we met for prayers and songs, and they prayed with us. They prayed for us. And then that evening, which was Sunday evening, we met with the Southside Presbyterian Church, and they gathered a bunch of different faith leaders from the community to come through. We were with the Mennonites, all different congregations, and I believe there was about 6 faith leaders that came together and prayed with us, and that was very powerful to be with that community. And then they also hosted us, fed us a great meal, and then we started our journey towards the Phoenix area, still all O'odham territory, but this is more of the O'odham, the river people. So we made our ways to the O'odham territory. We met with a group of veterans that stand with us, and they prayed with us there in the Chandler area. And then we met with the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian community, and really talked about Oak Flat, the environment, and what devastation is coming, the use of the water, the air quality, all those factors are a part of this. And then we journeyed on towards the Gila River community, and we ate with the Peeposh, and they shared songs and a fire and a meal, and really just made us feel welcome and at home, and they prayed with us. And then we were with the Xavier College Prep in downtown Phoenix and Brophy College Prep. They're both religious schools, and we were welcomed by the youth there, and they prayed with us, and it was wonderful to see all the young people that are taking a stand and understanding the importance of the future and the environment. And then we made our way down into the Quechong territory, and we're going to continue our journey into California and meet with the Morongo and all the different tribes on our way until we get to the LA area, where the LA different leaders there, we're excited to get there and pray with them. So that's the gist of our path on this convoy to the Ninth Circuit Court. We have the hearing on Tuesday at 10 o'clock. We do have a live stream link that I can send your way. That way you can actually hear the court case. It's really important that you hear the court case because you'll be able to tune in live and see what the United States government is, their words on religious freedom that affects all of us.
Hello, thank you for that. The last time we spoke, you and Vanessa were on your journey up to the Bay Area in California for a court hearing. And now, this March 21st of 2023, the convoy ends in Pasadena, California at the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. And so for our listeners, I was wondering if you could kind of walk us through the legal history, if you will, and why this spiritual journey that you're on right now to Pasadena, California is so important.
Okay, well, this is Vanessa. I can touch base on this one. This fight has been going on for over 20 years, and now we're at this final point where our religion is on trial, and that's the gist of it. That is like this holy place where our creation stories come from, and our identity and our spirituality is tied to this land and to our direct connection with God, Yulson, the Creator. It is being threatened, and I jumble with my words because it's hard to say it and hear it, because for the Apache people, if Oak Flat is destroyed, that means that we're going to be gone forever, because the essence of who we are and the spirituality of what the blessed gift God gave us will be gone forever. But that doesn't only affect the Apache people, it affects all people, because if the Indigenous people's religion as state, so is everyone else. No one is protected. Especially with this government that we have, it's a corporate government. Its priority is to make profit, not for the people. And so, if our religion is at stake, so is everyone else's. And if our natural resources of the land is continue to be extracted, then we will have nothing left nothing livable left for our future generations to come. So this court case is a huge moment for not just Indian country, but for all people. And why I say that is because you're going to hear the truth of how America was founded and how they really think about the Indigenous people, but also all people, because they didn't reinvent the wheel on militarism and the social injustice and environmental injustice and the religious injustice, because they just did what they're doing to the Indigenous people, they're doing it to all people. And so this is a true case that, one is you're going to see that this defeat and how what happened when the colonization came in, when the settlers came in, what happened to the Indigenous people, and how the United States still carries that forward in present day into the future, because nothing has changed. If we win this case, then there's actually hope for the future, because that means that they do recognize the first people of this country here in this United States and on our Indigenous land. They will acknowledge our religion does exist. That's a part of healing, because for far too long, we have been thrown underneath the carpet like we do not exist. But if it's so easy for them to do that to us for over profit and greed of a foreign mining company, that the copper that they're going to extract doesn't stay here in the United States and is going to China, that means everybody is at risk. Nobody is safe, no matter what religion and what race you come from. So that's why this is really important, this case. It's that essence of the truth and the ugly lies that were told to all people. And we are at the forefront protecting our spirituality, and that means if we have to protect ours and it goes our way, we're protecting everybody else's way of life. And then we're protecting Mother Earth, Nuggles Sun, the water, so that those future generations have a right to live and to breathe and to have a future of devastation, because that's the direction we're heading. But with this the Ninth Circuit Court appeal, what's really amazing about it, on top of this whole fight, is that only 0.05% do the judges ever call back a case. And so what happened was, when we got the judgment from the first Ninth Circuit court hearing, we grouped together. Of course, we were hoping it would go our way. We always have hope. That's the thing, is we always have hope. And for some reason, we're always being failed by the system, But when we got together, and my dad said, we have that one arrow left, and my dad said, we need to all come together and shoot it, but we need to hit the target. And we only have one chance left, and we're going to the Supreme Court. And so that was our decision. We were headed to the Supreme Court. It wasn't until, for whatever reason, that this judge felt it in their heart and saw that they didn't like the judgment that came out of that first Ninth Circuit Court hearing, and asked the judges, all the Ninth Circuit and bunk judges, to review the case again. So we submitted our briefing, United States submitted their briefing, and then the majority voted that, okay, we do need to come back and see this. We do need to re-look at this case and really, make it a point to go over it again. And so there's never been an Indigenous fight go this far where a judge and the majority of judges called it back. And so, we cried, because we're not asking. What we're trying to do is hit the people's conscience, hit their spirit, hit their hearts, because we're fighting for everyone. We're fighting for humanity. We're fighting for Mother Earth. We're looking at 7 generations ahead. That's what we're taught as Indigenous people. But we include all people. And so, when we got the news that, okay, the Ninth Circuit Court is calling us back, we were filled again with hope.
And you're listening to American Indian Airwaves. We're speaking with Leanne Big Horse and Vanessa Nosey on the Apache Stronghold spiritual convoy to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals to protect Oak Flat. And now back to the interview.
You know, that there is a possibility that things can change, and there is a brighter future down the road. And so that's what was really, amazing about this new hearing on appeals of our case. And that's where we're at now. With the spiritual convoy. We're going back to the old ways. We're trying to do it right because we're in a spiritual battle. What we're fighting is evil, and it's in the formation of not a human, but of corporations and division of power and greed, and that's what was prophesied to us. So we're touching at, different tribes, seeing different tribal leaders, seeing spiritual leaders, seeing faith leaders of all kinds, meaning grassroots organizations, community people. We're coming on this convoy in a good way, gathering all the prayers and blessings, because people do know that it affects them as a whole. It affects this whole country. And so it's been an amazing journey. Like my sister has shared all the stops that we've reached so far, but it's not easy, because we're fighting this evil, but good always prevails. And we're making our way, to Pasadena, like the old way, when we were taught, when you go into somebody's territory, you acknowledge them, you ask permission, you ask not just the people, but the deities, the Holy Spirits, the holy people, we ask that we come in, and that's how it should be done, because we're not just fighting a system, we're fighting evil that controls the system.
Hello, thank you for the response. And I know the last time when we spoke, we were talking about how important what people know as Oak Flat in English, but how important this place is not just to the people, but also surrounding Native American nations, but also how important this place is to the plant and animal relations that not only live there, but also other relations, the winged and the four-legged, that travel to that area and travel through that area as part of their migration patterns and behavioral patterns. And so when we talk about the cultural importance of the living lands and Mother Earth and everything that she sustains for us, can you talk about that a little bit more? Because this project, if approved, is so violent in so many different ways.
That's a very, very big question, and with a really, really big answer. So if I could just kind of touch on a few things.
Go ahead. Thank you. Hello.
So to understand Oak Flat, for us, it's inherent. We grew up going to Oak Flat, praying at Oak Flat, being there in ceremony. It's how we raise our kids. It's a way of life in this beautiful, beautiful place. And I guess the best way I can explain it is that you have to be on the land to feel it. And, there's a place called Gone Canyon, and it's, one of the places that we do pray at. In this canyon is where they said that our deities, they went through. And so our Gone people, known as the crown dancers. And in this space, it's hard to explain this feeling, but the best way I can explain it is you can feel the presence of the Creator. You can feel the presence of God, right? It's that sublime feeling. And then that's only in one space. There's also what's called Apache Leap. And at Apache Leap, the history of this space is that, over 100 years ago, when the U.S. cavalry was still rounding up those Native people that, hadn't been placed on reservations yet, hadn't been killed off yet. They got the Apache people there. And instead of being captured, the people, they jumped So that's where they call it Apache Leap. And so all of those things are a factor. And when you hike up to the top of Apache Leap, it's that same feeling. And there you're greeted by all the elements, right? It's a space where you can actually feel the wind and you can hear the birds. And the more time that you spend there, the more trust that you develop with the environment. You know, you start to hear the animals, right? They don't stay away the way they always do. And it's that kind of connection with the land. It's a space where we can gather our acorn, our tonkoje, like where it will feed you. You could live there because there's water, there's food, and there's medicine in this space. So it's where our ancestors were, and we know that it's where they congregated because it's not just the sites that are there aren't just the Apache sites. There's awesome sites. It's a beautiful, beautiful place that gives life. And, you know, we conduct ceremony there. There's so many different ways to explain that connection. But, you know, it's a space where if you have not been there before, you need to come. And I say that because, you know, we have this foreign mining company that is you know, doing everything they can to destroy this space. It will be a huge hole, big enough to fit the Eiffel Tower. It's a beautiful space. So that's a little bit of justice I can do to the space. My sister will share as well.
No, it's you know, it's not just devastation to the people, but you're right. You know, what we are taught as Indigenous people, you know, is that Creator, Yosen, God created all living things, and that's what's at threat. You see resolution copper dewaterizing. You see the effects that are happening to our chill, our acorn, the trees. You see, you know, the coloration seems dull, but it's they're like, everything is just like, you see they say, oh, a resolution copper says, oh, it's not going to have any effect on the OFAT paracel until 40 to 60 years, which we see it now. You know, our father, he's been living there for almost 3 years now, and he's noticed and has talked to us and documented, you know, the effects that are happening and that what he's witnessing. And that's what we're praying about. It's just not the us as humans and the joy that we give to it, but we also know that from the tiniest rock to the birds that are flying, to the plants, the trees, the grass, the animals that live there is all alive. And that's what we're fighting for also, because we need to be that voice for it. And, you know, when you talk about other tribes there, OFAT has been such a historic, significant area for all people. There was a point of trade from all different nations, and that's where that was where a meeting point was at OFAT, so that our Indigenous people, the different tribes that would come in and trade with one another as they went to Mexico, all the way up to the northern part of the states. I mean, it has a lot of cultural and historic significance there, and that's important, because if we don't know our past, we will never have a future. And that's for all people, you know. That's what ties us. That's what ties us to family. That's what ties us to our religion, our spirituality, our culture, the land. We need to have that tie. My grandmother said it's like a tree. They're the roots. And as we grow, we become branches. And then, you know, for women, you know, we're fruitful, and when a fruit falls and it creates a new tree, we become that stem. We become that root. Then we grow in our family. That's how it should be, you know. And so it's very important of all walks of life. There's no separation, because if OFAT is destroyed, or any of our holy places, then we know that's going to be a huge destruction to all walks of life. And, you know, right now we're in a huge climate issue. And that will set the precedence of what will happen in Arizona. Right now, there is no monitoring or laws that Resolution Copper has to monitor their water. They have unlimited access use of water.
Wow.
Once it subsides, once the surface subsides, they're talking about the heat rising anywhere from 8 to like 10 degrees. And in Arizona, we're already, affected by the climate change and the heat. So you're looking at the metropolitan area raising from 120 to like 130. I mean, for years behind closed doors, we've known Phoenix to talk about cooling shelter for the homeless because they're not going to be able to survive the heat wave. I mean, and this is all Resolution Copper is doing. They want to disguise it with these words of saying that they're working with tribes, that it's for the green bill. We're going green. How can you destroy land? Continue to destroy land to go green. There's tons of ways of recycling copper and the less amount of usage of water, but they don't want to put money into it. They want to go the cheapest route. They don't want to put time and effort to recycle all the copper. This is an easy and a lazy way out, is to continue to destroy the land. And that's the sad part, because that affects all people. I always tell my kids, I'm afraid that we're going to be like that book, The Lorax, or the movie,
Uh-huh.
I was like, that is the future we're heading. If we continue to let corporations make the decisions for us, and our government allow them to take over, because our government isn't doing anything. They're allowing these big corporations to come in and feed money into their pockets so that they can continue to destroy the land.
The gathering is March 21st, 2023. Our folks meeting at Defenders Park is at 9 a.m. and then the folks will walk to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. Is that the plan?
So my understanding is that the Defenders Park is about 600 feet away from the courthouse.
Okay.
So we do plan to have some speakers set up, because we wish we could get everybody in the courtroom, but they only have so many seats. So what we would like is those that, truly, need to hear this case, we're going to live stream the case. So it'll be also heard live at Defenders Park as well. The court case starts at 10 o'clock. Proceedings start at 10 o'clock. And then there'll be, some people that are able to get in the courthouse as well. But it's at Defenders Park. There'll be a spiritual gathering there. We'll probably be there early and just, trying to get everything ready so everybody will have an opportunity to hear what the United States says about religion.
Before we get to how listeners can help in protecting Oak Flat, I was wondering if you can share with our listeners what the journey's been like over the past 8 years in helping to defend home, right? What people know as Oak Flat.
So, this is something that we've grown up in. So the journey for us has been very, very long. Even longer for our parents and those that were fighting before us. But the one thing that I can touch on is that what I see is, I feel like there's obstacles that present themselves, right? Mm-hmm. There's, in 2015, there was the National Defense Authorization Act, that midnight rider that, gave Resolution Copper, the green light on bypassing the federal laws that are in place to protect the land, the environment, the religion, all those things, right? The water, those things. That's a huge obstacle. And through prayer, we've been able to get past these obstacles. And, I believe that, sometimes people, we're human, we lose hope, right? But as we go forward, it's been prayer and hope that's been getting us through. And so that's what's so important to take away from what we're doing, because this is a spiritual battle. It's a spiritual convoy that we're on.
And you're listening to American Indian Airwaves. We're speaking with Leanne Bighorse and Vanessa Nosey on the Apache Stronghold spiritual convoy to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals to protect Oak Flat. And now back to the interview.
You know, people, they're like, okay, well, you know, what do you need from us? We need prayer. You know, we ask that, you know, wherever you are during that time, 10 o'clock on Tuesday, that you pray with us, because we're going to be there and we're going to be praying. And what we need is really, you know, we never pray to win. We pray for the conscience. So the mind and the heart, so those people make the right choices, because we were all gifted with the ability to know the difference between right and wrong. And it's whether or not we make those right choices. Do we outweigh greed and money and those kind of things for what is right? So, you know, that's my thought process when I look at our journey, is we have continued to pray, we've continued to have faith and have to be hopeful, and that's what's gotten us where we are. You know, we're still an uphill battle, but, you know, we're going to pray, because with one door that gets slammed in our face, we find an opportunity through prayer. So that's where we are.
I think the other thing, listening to Leanne, you know, is and what we're reminded is that there were so many obstacles set in our way for us to stop, but we didn't. We never gave up, and we've always been persistent in following our faith and our spirituality, because this is an important issue. This is an important fight, you know. And when I look back at the walks, the marches, the runs, the caravans, the meetings, the discussions, you know, it took a lot of sacrifice and commitment and faith and love to get us to where we're at, because when people thought that we were going to give up, when they told us Apache Stronghold was in a tribal government, when they had Obama signed the NDAA, I mean, all these things that you could think about, you know, that has played out throughout this journey, where we could have just threw our hands in, said, okay, we're done, but we didn't. And that's what I'm really proud of. I'm really proud of, you know, our father sacrificing his whole life for this fight, you know, paving that way for us to follow. And even though we as a family have sacrificed, he showed us the ultimate love and passion for his people and all people, and for Nuggles Sun, the earth. And that's what we're taking away from this, is that's how that's important, and we want to carry it on, because we've had a father set that example for us, and we've really been blessed, you know, even to the point that, you know, he's being shot at, he's getting his life threatened, you know, he can't go into certain restaurants in the towns. I mean, you know, we've had to really change our life, but I know we wouldn't have done it any other way. This is who we are. This was, you know, goes back from our ancestors of being resilient and fighters and protectors, to it going from our grandmother to our father to our parents, you know, to us, and hopefully we set the example for our children. And that's what I think about in this journey.
Well, thank you both so much for sharing your experiences on this journey over the years and in the struggle and helping to defend home, right? Helping defend Oak Flat. And as we wrap up, the Ninth Circuit Court case is being held March 21st in Pasadena, California. And for listeners that want to help, are there any other strategies that you can provide listeners to help them protect home, to help them protect this sacred site?
Yes, I mean, it's always important to contact your congressional leaders, no matter what state you are. This is federal land. They have an opportunity to call, to write letters, but not just them. flood the phones, flood the emails, flood the mail of Tonto National Forest Service. Let them know that the people do not want this. Get your local leaders, state, city, town, districts, get them involved, because at some point what's happening here in the state of Arizona and at Oak Flat is going to happen throughout this whole country. I mean, we see it all over. We see all these little fights happening. Look what Biden just did with Alaska.
Yep.
You know, how this is we're heading down the wrong road. We need to come back to the morals of what is right and wrong and what kind of future we're going to leave. We take too much for granted of our natural resources and power. I mean, the things that this country is really has embraced, that's not who we are as a people, all people, you know? And so we need our government to start making moral decisions for the people. So please contact your congresspeople from state, city, counties, at all levels, and contact the Tonto National Forest Service. Tell Neil Bosworth to stop this, because Tonto National Forest has an opportunity to have a voice and say, no, we can't do this. You know, always, like my sister said, prayer. Have them sponsor Grijalva's bill to save Oak Flat. We're going to need it. Yep. So any which way and form that people can help and come with good intentions, you know, we really need to stay together. What we've learned is that all people, no matter what religion, what race, what nationality that you are, we need to be one drum, one prayer, one circle, because it's going to take us as a whole to make a difference in this world.
And then if anybody needed to, you know, have more information on what we're doing, we are on social media. We are on Facebook. We're on Instagram.
Our website?
We have a website. Our website is apache-stronghold.com.
And that was Leanne Bighorse and Vanessa Nossi of the Apache Stronghold speaking on the spiritual convoy to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals in protecting Oak Flat. The court will hear the case regarding the land exchange of Oak Flat, 2,200 acres in Tonto National Forest in Arizona, being transferred to Resolution Copper, where they plan to build and construct the largest open copper and ore mining pit in the world that will permanently desecrate and destroy the sacred site known as Oak Flat. For more information on the Apache Stronghold, you can visit their website at apache-stronghold.com. You're listening to American Indian Airwaves. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back.
We were all wounded at Wounded Knee, you and me, in the name of manifest destiny, you and me. You and me, you and me. They made us many promises, but always broke their word. They penned us in like buffalo, drove us like a herd, and finally on the reservation where we'd gone for we were all wiped out by the 7th Cavalry. You and me, you and me. We were all wounded at Wounded Knee. You and me. We were all wounded at Wounded Knee, you and me, in the name of by the 7th Cavalry. You and me, you and me. We were all wounded at Wounded Knee. You and me, we were all wounded at Wounded Knee.
We were all wounded at Wounded Knee by Redbone here on American Indian Airwaves. In the final segment of today's program here on American Indian Airwaves, we continue with the second part of our interview on the occupation of Wounded Knee, which occurred from February 27th of 1973 to May 8th of 1973. It is the outcome of over 200 members of the American Indian movement and supporters occupying Wounded Knee in the Lakota Nation in South Dakota, and is in response to a call to action from traditional Lakota residents whose civil, human, and treaty rights were constantly being violated by corrupt Indigenous and U.S. government officials. The Wounded Knee occupation resulted in a 71-day military standoff with the U.S. government officials and quickly drew domestic and international support from people, organizations, and foreign governments throughout the world. Our guest, Kevin McKernan, was a journalist, and his first beat, if you will, was to cover the 71-day occupation of Wounded Knee. He was there for the entire time, and this is his experience. From Wounded Knee to Standing Rock, a reporter's journey. I have a question, and kind of comes back to your journey out there to Wounded Knee, and you were talking about being green, and as a journalist and as a filmmaker, I was wondering if maybe we could speak to that. And what I'm getting at is kind of the media performance and media culture of American society at the time, and how is your lived experience juxtaposition to what was happening at the time? So, you know, back then you had Dee Brown's Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee book was extraordinarily popular, right? You had all these Western films that had been made, you know, from John Ford Cheyenne Autumns to 64 to Tell Them Willie Boy Was Here, Soldier Blue in 1970, which wasn't even released in every state at the time. Little Big Man, right? You had two of the four Billy Jack films that were part of American popular culture before Wounded Knee in 73. And then it doesn't even speak to how, you know, the American mass media journalism profession was covering Indigenous issues. And I was wondering if you maybe speak to that and how your film is so important given where we've come over the past 50 years.
I think, Larry, that the difference is how deeply you believe in the concept of objectivity. And in the 70s, there was a lot of talk about objectivity and really a denial that subjective response was important, and that things could be learned that, you know, from that. I could never have learned by objectivity those lessons in Wounded Knee if I hadn't had that personal experience. Mm-hmm. And that's really what I tried to do in the film, because I remember when Buddy Lamont was killed in Wounded Knee. In fact, I think I had dug a little shallow foxhole where a federal sniper killed him when he was coming up out of there.
And you're listening to American Indian Airwaves. You're listening to part 2 of this 2-part interview with Kevin McKernan on the 50th anniversary of the occupation of Wounded Knee. And now back to the interview.
And I remember when the feds opened up he was a Vietnam veteran. He was an Oglala Lakota and he'd come home from Vietnam to find, in his words, tyranny on his own reservation, and so he joined the fight. His mother, Agnes Lamont, was a cook, a BIA cook, and her great uncle and aunt were killed in 1890 in the massacre. You have to remember that there were people still alive on the reservation that I talked to who as children had been who had survived that massacre in 1890. So this was not that far along. In any case, Agnes Lamont finds her mother was 12 and survived Wounded Knee, 1890, but her aunt and uncle were killed. And here she told me in an NPR interview she never ever dreamt in her worst nightmare that her son would also be killed at Wounded Knee. And this was because he was a local guy, and because he had fought in Vietnam, and because of his beliefs, it really just rocked the reservation. And pressure was put on Dick Wilson and on the federal government to allow the funeral to take place and for him to be buried at Wounded Knee itself, near the mass grave where the 200 or 300 people were massacred 83 years before. So the roadblocks were open and with vetting, and they allowed people to come in. And I remember that they brought so many cakes and cookies that we hadn't eaten very much. I had lost 20 pounds on the, I don't know, you might call it the Jenny Craig Wounded Knee program. And but I ate, I just ate my way through cake and cookies, and then I felt drunk. I was holding on to the side of the building because of the sugar rush. But the thing I'm getting to was that when he was buried, his casket was opened, and the presents that people gave to him to take to the spirit world were laid on his military uniform. And by then he had hair down to his shoulders, and he was wearing moccasins, beaded moccasins rather than combat boots, and razor blades, deodorant, shampoo, little parts of candy, tobacco offerings were laid on his military uniform. And it was a really emotional experience for everyone who was there. And there was a woman who had come from Denver she was a relative of some kind, and she turned to me. People had Instamatics. You guys might not be old enough to remember them. But they were taking pictures with their Instamatics, their little Kodak Instamatics. And I was taking pictures, as I had throughout the whole occupation, with my professional camera. And no one had ever asked me to stop shooting those pictures. And this woman said to me, who, of course, maybe never been in Wounded Knee, said to me, how much money are you making for taking pictures of our dead relative? And, that thing just impaled me. And I put my camera down while everyone else continued clicking. And I thought a lot about that moment and how that affected my life. And I said to myself over time, and months afterwards and everything, if you really want to be a journalist, a photojournalist, you can't put your camera down. You have to believe enough in yourself, and that this is an extension of that your heart is clean, and that this is an extension of yourself, and you intend to do good. And so that lesson was kind of overwhelming to me, and it came out of that moment where I was being criticized, and I've never forgotten that.
Kevin, like what Larry was talking about, and the media and the film industry, your film, From Wounded Knee to Standing Rock, A Reporter's Journey, to me it's important because of the fact that what you said, and I think a lot of journalists need to understand, correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, that you don't start from on top, but that from below, if you will, from grassroots, listen to the heartbeat, listen to what's going on, and your view of Native people, different civil rights. I thought it was on point, and that the this film that you created and your experiences, and what I think what Larry's question was, is it important for people to listen to what you say from below or from the grassroots? Was that your take on it? Was for young listeners, to reporters, or foreign journalists, or whatnot?
Yes.
A lot of them just want to get, the official reports, but not grassroots, not to the people themselves. I know that you wrote something about, and you filmed about good Kurds, bad Kurds, and it was a very complicated situation over there. But is that true?
Yeah,
Grassroots?
it really is, and I think that the Kurds are a good example. The Kurds are the children of Native Americans in my lifetime, in my learning, and in fact, I think I have a line in Good Kurds, Bad Kurds, which was a PBS film in the year 2000, that says the Kurds are so old and their culture is so many thousands of years before other cultures like Turkey and so forth, that they are kind of the Native Americans of the Middle East. And so yes, they were directly connected in my life. And back to Larry's question about objectivity and subjectivity, or at least the way I interpreted the question, 40, 50 years ago, to some extent still today, we talk about the importance of objectivity as if, you can remove yourself from the picture that you are experiencing. And, that's one thing I believe, if I'm remembering this correctly, that Einstein says that, you are part of what you're seeing and you change that. You change that. And so I think when reporters parachute in and the reality they see, they really should not divorce that from their being there and how that changes the equation. I think the European press is much more honest in some ways, or much more frank than our own, because they have truth in labeling. They say, this is the liberal press, this is the communist press, this is the conservative press. And here we just say, well, this is what happened. You can't go to a little kiosk on the street where they have all those different newspapers and say, give me this or give me that. I mean, we know that some places like the Wall Street Journal and Fox News and all that is conservative, but at the same time, everyone claims to be objective. That is, that this is the unvarnished truth. It's as if somehow you look down on the people you're covering and you kind of remove the top of their skulls and you can see inside what the truth is. That's the reductio ad absurdum, where that's objectivity. You're looking in there and you can see the truth. Well, we can't see the truth. We can see our vantage point on it, perhaps, and I think that's one thing I became comfortable in Good Kurds, Bad Kurds, in my film Bringing King to China, in the earlier Native film The Spirit of Crazy Horse, which was on Frontline in 1990 on the 100th anniversary of Wounded Knee. In all of those were subjective films where people were saying, this is my slice of what I think happened. It's not the absolute definitive truth. And I think that for journalists, it's very good for them to think in those terms, that they're part of what they're reporting.
Yeah, Kevin, in ending, what do you want to leave with the public, with our listeners at this point?
Well, I hope that people will take a trip through the movie and to see gradually that these layers of the onion, so to speak, were unpeeled for me, and that they could do the same sort of thing if they choose. Maybe not in the same way, of course, but in their own way. That things are connected. And for me, I didn't learn this stuff overnight. My film is really talking about a lifetime of education that came to me, that I was so lucky to be welcomed into that culture. And the first thing is to become aware of these things through reading or writing or watching, and then maybe when you meet someone, listening to what they have to say.
The moment of silence is over.
And that was part 2 of our 2-part interview with Kevin McKernan on his documentary From Wounded Knee to Standing Rock, a reporter's journey, as part of our ongoing series on the 50th anniversary of the occupation of Wounded Knee in 1973. That concludes our show for today here on American Indian Airwaves. A special thank you to our guests, Leanne Bighorse, Vanessa Nosey, and Kevin McKernan. A special thank you to our musical guests, Aragon Starr, Koopa Aina, Redbone, and the band Blackfire. American Indian Airwaves is mixed and mastered in the studios of Burnt Swamp Studios in Signal Hill, California. For Marcus Lopez, I've been your host for the hour, Larry Smith. Until next time.
Justify why your freedom manifests on their graves, and the blood never comes clean from their guilty minds, nor the hands that hold the chains. In a rhythm of resistance, we still fight for our lives in this war that never ended. We've outgrown your lives. Let our actions speak when they ignore our words. For all the lies, there's a truth that must be heard. After all the lies and the empty promises, we take a stand on the land that you tried to bury us. For all the pain and all the suffering, we take a stand. We take a stand. We sleep caged against our fears. Try not to become what we've endured. Wearing our souls on a thread. The moment